And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Morning, everybody. July 8th, 2024. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for tuning in. 100 people were shot in Chicago over 4th of July weekend, Eric. 127% increase from the year prior. What do you think, Guy? Is it policy that's doing this? Is it policy, politics, and legislation? Or is it just what the progressives tell us? Oh, it's just a crime trend. Crime goes up, it goes down. Is it just a trend, or is it what the people of Chicago voted for and what their politicians installed? What do you got?
Oh, Chicago's just doing a great job. Absolutely. First of all, it's completely absurd. I mean, we saw it for the past couple of years. Just crime has been out of control in Chicago. The police have been completely vilified in Chicago. And now we have the most progressive woke mayor we've ever seen in Chicago history. That's actually surpassed his predecessor. It's absolutely, it's politicians, it's the media, it is the legislation, it's the whole ball of wax. It's a conglomerate of issues, and Chicago residents are completely affected by it. It's just complete lawlessness, chaos. I just hope that this infectiousness does not spread to New York. New York is out of control, but this is just completely on a whole nother level. It's just absurd. I feel sorry for the residents that actually live there.
Oh, sorry about that. I was on mute.
Yeah, the whole thing you were on mute.
Dude, just cut me off next time. Sorry about that, everybody.
I was trying to.
Sorry, dude. I was reading. All right. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
So what I was saying is Chicago is a tale of two cities right now, because I pulled up a tweet from Betsy Brantner Smith. She's the spokeswoman for the National Police Association. She's one of the real voices out there speaking on the ills that are happening in the profession of law enforcement. So she tweets about Chicago. Chicago is a cautionary tale for the rest of the country. Vilification of the police, the failure to properly prosecute criminals, and a refusal by voters to hold elected leadership accountable are destroying the city. Eric, what do you think about what Betsy's got to say?
Well, absolutely. We just spoke about this offline, and I was saying, Betsy had a fantastic tweet. And Betsy always has her finger on the pulse. She's a huge supporter of law enforcement. She does a great job representing law enforcement throughout the entire country. And it's absolutely proven Chicago and New York and the Democratic cities throughout this entire country are quintessential cases to look at of how Democratic policies, the woke progressive movement, the vilification of police, the defund the police movement, this whole post-George Floyd hiring process, all the riots that we endured, and of course now the pro-Palestinian effort, which is really BLM 2.0 and paid agitators and paid actors throughout this entire country. This is sad state of affairs that we look at this picture right now, that this man is actually the mayor of a city, an illustrious city just as Chicago. And Chicago has had a history, of course, plagued by crime, but by now this is just absolutely absurd. Over 100 people shot, 16 people dead. I think the fatalities might be even more from what the reports that I had. This is absolutely absurd. It's uninhabitable. I don't know how the voters can actually continue on and go with these Democratic policies.
I love this photo of Brandon Johnson because he looks like a deer in headlights. You could see him literally. That's probably right when he got a question that goes against the ideology that he's trying to push. So I know who else loves Brandon Johnson, and it's New York City Mayor Eric Adams. And it's not because he's a black mayor that New York City Mayor Eric Adams loves him. It's because if not for Brandon Johnson, New York City mayor would be the worst mayor in the country. But as of right now, he's in second place behind Brandon Johnson, because I gotta say this guy is definitely worse than Eric Adams. He makes Eric Adams look coherent. Myself and Eric both been on National Police Association podcast. Check that out. Betsy interviewed us separately. Maybe we could get her to do it us together at some point. But yeah, absolutely. I think that she nails this. She completely nails it. The failure to not prosecute criminals is just flowing to this crime trend that's increasing in crime, and the absolute insane legislation that is pro-criminal and anti-police is what happened to Chicago. And the fact that voters are apathetic, the fact that the society has been apathetic and not held these wackos like Brandon Johnson accountable. I mean, forget about even holding him accountable. I mean, the other mayor they had, Beetlejuice, you didn't think it could get worse than her. You know, same for New York, right? I didn't think it could get worse than Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo. And then we got Hochul and Adams. And now here you go, you had Beetlejuice in Chicago, and you didn't think it could get worse than her. And step on the stage, Brandon Johnson.
Well, that's why it's so important that we look at Brandon Johnson. Absolutely, you're 100% right. He's actually in a position where he actually makes New York City Mayor Eric Adams actually appear that there is some benefit and there is something good to Mayor Eric Adams, because when you hold him against Brandon Johnson, you can say, well, at least we're in a better position than this mayor. But it's so important that we actually look at the case of Chicago, what's going on here, especially for New York City residents, because could we get to this point? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important of who's in position in New York City. And I always say this, listen, what makes New York City different than other places? And I've been to numerous democratic cities throughout this entire country. I've spent time in LA, I spent time in Chicago, I spent time in New York City. I grew up in New York City. And don't get me wrong, the streets in New York City are rough, and we have lawlessness, and we have pandemonium, we have chaos. But there is one thing about New York City, I would say, that's comparable to other cities. The fact that I do believe that there is something written, that there's something rooted into the bedrock of the foundation of the residents of New York City, and also the police, that we want to battle crime together. And I'm not talking about the leadership of the NYPD and the administration. I'm talking about just people, the rank and file, the boots on the ground, ultimately together, this conglomerate of actually wanting to fight crime, where I see in comparison to other cities that fabric is not there. And clearly it's not there in Chicago. And the police have been so vilified in Chicago more than anywhere else. The NYPD has absolutely been demonized. But Chicago has been demonized to the point they are so handicapped they cannot even do their job. They can no longer perform. Every piece of legislation that can be administered to handcuff the police has been done to Chicago. And look at the byproduct. Look at the results. Could it be 200 on the weekend? Absolutely. This is just the beginning of the summer. And this is a stage of affairs that we look at and say exactly what you and I have been talking about, John. There has to be some system put into place that mayors can be recalled. Absolutely. There's no way that this mayor could go on for a 4-year term and continue on like this. This is absolutely lawlessness. This is beyond what goes on in a third world country.
But if he is able to be recalled, will the voters actually recall him? Will the voters install someone who's worse than him? I mean, and by all means, Betsy's 100% right. Make sure you give her a follow on X. She's 1,000% right here. She hits it out of the park. Home run, without a doubt. But how does he get elected in the first place? And will he be recalled? I just read an article 2 days ago. It came out. I forget who wrote it. 80% of the times that a shot spotter goes off in Chicago. So a shot spotter, for those of you that don't know, if a boom with something that is a shot, a firearm went off in city limits within Chicago in high crime areas, 80% of the time, there is no 911 call associated with that shot spotter hit. If that doesn't show the apathy in residents right there, that's like the same thing in New York City when you're hearing sirens and you're hearing motors revving and you're hearing ambulances and you're hearing cop cars, and you don't even hear it. You kind of black it out. It just becomes part of the scenic background noise, right? And now in Chicago, the scenic background noise has become gunshots, obviously, because people aren't even alarmed by it. Oh, it's just I'm shooting again. Somebody's dead.
Absolutely. Let's go back to her tweet. I think she nails it again when she says that the people, the voters, have to hold the elected officials accountable. That actually reflects on what's going on with the New York City Police Department. We hear from John Shell, the chief of patrol, and now his leadership breakdown throughout the police department refer to the district attorney's office, refer to council members as stakeholders that are actually participants in the fight for public safety, right? The fight to protect people. So who is the major stakeholder in this also is just the people, the residents, right? The residents are stakeholders in public safety because it goes back to what you always say, John. John, you say, I got to give you credit. You always talk about voter apathy, and I agree. Voter apathy is one of the major contributing factors to how we get here. Because you said to yourself, you said before, and I find it quite interesting, if he's recalled, will we get someone worse? How could we actually get someone worse? How could the people actually allow that? We see over 100 people shot in one weekend in the city of Chicago. Chicago is a metropolis, and yet it's not as dense as New York City. So to get to this point is absolutely terrifying. And what's even more horrific, and just shows the lack of empathy for the minority communities from the Democrats, is because if you actually look at Chicago and you look at a map where this is happening, it's really narrowed in specific areas, and it's sad that the people can't even walk around. They can't even live there. It's not even habitable. It's uninhabitable. Betsy, thank you so much. I know you watch this. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support as always. That's a fantastic tweet. We got you back. Thank you so much for supporting law enforcement, supporting the people of America.
Oh, absolutely. Betsy's been on it, right? She had you on when it wasn't politically friendly. She had myself on in the height of COVID when it wasn't politically friendly. So I always appreciate Betsy. But I do want to add something to her tweet. Besides holding the elected officials accountable, the people also need to hold their appointed managers accountable. People like the corrupt New York City sheriff, who invented the invisible mask during COVID, who's storing the drugs that he's seizing in places that the sheriffs are saying not to. People like Police Commissioner Edward Caban, who's failing to actually implement anything. People like Kaz Daughtry, who's spending our money to take the media on helicopter tours of New York City. So I just wanted to add that one part to it. Eric, so what do you say to people who are saying the progressives? I mean, we had Edwin Raymond on, and he spoke about how crime went down across the country, and it was a trend, almost as if no policy had affected, or no legislation or no type of enforcement had brought crime down. Now that we see crime rising, is it policy, or is it just trending up?
Well, it's nice to believe that there's some magic potion that things just trend in different directions when it comes to crime. But clearly we can see just from history itself that what's the best reflection of the future and reflection of what's going on now is a reflection of the past. And we can see in the past when the police department is not doing intrusive police work, not taking part in broken windows, how cities start to decimate. And there is a correlation, right? Once we start to see neighborhoods decimate and deteriorate, then we have what's called flight, right? So that also deteriorates when it comes to real estate. And I believe there's a correlation to when it comes to crime, as far as the police having their finger on the pulse doing intrusive police work, and also in correlation with real estate. And that's what affects crime in neighborhoods. And we could see in the 90s, especially in New York City, with broken windows, intrusive police work, how we could turn a neighborhood around and start to make it habitable, where we have gentrification. And we're back to that now, where we have gentrification, but now we're starting to see the Great Escape, and we're seeing flight again. There is no, let's not be mistaken, and let's not pretend, let's not be a babe in the woods and think that there's some just magic potion where things trend. They trend for a reason. When the police have their finger on the pulse and they're doing intrusive police work, and ultimately it comes down to this. The bad guys that are out in the streets know that there are consequences. When they know that they will be held to consequences and they will actually spend time in prison, and they will go to jail for committing crimes, that's when we change things. So it's the whole conglomerate of things. Absolutely, it's the police department doing their job, and as John Shell says with the NYPD, it's the stakeholders, the district attorney's offices, the public officials, making sure that we actually have consequences and people actually go to jail for committing crimes. Believe it or not, excuse me, and the public knows this, and the cops that are out there throughout the entire country. I've arrested some of the worst volatile perpetrators, and even they don't want to go to jail. So people don't like consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. If nothing's going to happen to you, what are you worried about? And that is the ultimate thing. So, Edwin, if you listen to this, this is why I consistently say, what is the solution to bring down crime?
You know what? Absolutely. We had Edwin on. We had Edwin on this podcast. I would say close to a year ago now. I think it was about November or maybe October of last year. And we had given Edwin the opportunity to come back here and discuss some more issues. So, Edwin, if you watch as I brief, I think you should come back here. Great opportunity to discuss trends going up and down. I don't think that trends go up and down by accident. I think that there is a clear correlation to the intrusive police work that is being conducted. Also, with what's being administered by the politicians, the legislations that are enacted, it affects the whole ball of wax. There's no mistake about it. Look at the policies that we have in Chicago and the outcome of 100 people shot. Let's be rhetorical. Let's speak here. Imagine Giuliani was the mayor of Chicago during this July 4th weekend. Do we believe that we would have 100 people shot? I think absolutely not.
Oh, absolutely. We wouldn't. I mean, that's 100%. So, but let's look at what CNN's got to say, right? Because I always love CNN. So they report that at least 100 people were shot by gunfire. 17 of them died from their wounds. This is a tally of Independence Day weekend gun violence. Chicago marks around a 27% increase in shootings over the last year. In 2023, the Chicago Sun-Times reported that at least 73 people were shot. But let's see what they're saying on why gun violence is up. Ready? Heat experts say can elevate discomfort and aggression, a potential catalyst for violence. At a time, the kids are out of school and warmer weather drives more people outdoors in a country with more guns than people. On Friday, after dozens of people had already been shot in Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson released a statement addressing the violence. We are devastated by the recent violence that has left our city in a state of grief, and we extend our heartfelt condolences to the families and the communities impacted by these recent events, Johnson said in the statement. The city of Chicago is committed to ensuring the safety of all residents and visitors. Eric, does that sound like that's a legitimate statement to you?
Again, these politicians, they're like used car salesmen, except they're selling you a car that has no wheels on it and has no engine. Absolutely ridiculous. And to use those buzzwords, to say that we're actually committed to public safety and committed to the residents of Chicago is a complete farce. It's a complete lie. Because if you were committed to the residents and the public safety of Chicago, you would have the laws enacted completely changed on its face. There would be a 180, and the Chicago Police Department would be supported so they could actually do their job. And we wouldn't have ridiculous legislation enacted to hold the police back from conducting foot pursuits or any type of tactical responses that the police department can do their job and be supported and not be indicted as criminals and vilified for doing their job, for protecting the residents of Chicago. And here is your byproduct: 100 people shot. And listen, just do the math right now. I heard in the police department years ago. I don't have the actual data with me because I know there's some people that are haters out there and they'll ask for the data. But what I did learn in the police department is that 87% of gunshot wounds are survivable. So if you actually do the math, it's actually pretty close because over 100 people were shot and 17 people died. Again, just think about those numbers. If 87% of gunshot wounds are survivable, this is scary. This is scary that we still had 17 people die. This is not good. Some people could say, oh, well, considering there's over 100 people shot, only 17 people passed. Well, that's a lot of people that died. Considering 87% of gunshot wounds are survivable, this is absolutely ridiculous. One life is too many. One life is one family, and all these families that are connected in the entire community should be affected by it. And for him to say that they're committed to it is absolutely absurd. Again, voter apathy. If the people actually care, you need to vote the right way. From now on, I'm going to refer to the people as stakeholders.
Eric, I got 2 questions for you. One, in your experience as a New York City police officer, you've responded to numerous shots fired, numerous people struck by gunfire, sometimes people killed by gunfire from illegal firearms. In your experience, are these people sharpshooters that are shooting illegal firearms? So if we have 100 people shot, how many, was it 100% accuracy rate? How many shots actually went off on Chicago streets over the weekend?
That's actually a great point. Actually, it's completely opposite. It's a complete 180 in comparison to the statement that you just made, right? So most of the people that actually fire weapons in New York City, and I'm sure it's probably mirrors the same thing in other democratic cities throughout the entire country, have little to zero training with their firearms. They don't know how to actually clean the firearms. They don't know how to hold it properly. They don't know actually how to look at the sights. They don't know how to fire. So absolutely not. And that's why we see innocent people, and usually bystanders are actually the ones who get shot in the crossfire, which is completely sad. It's unfortunate. It's like the drunk driver syndrome. The drunk driver is the shooter, and of course always survives because they're so relaxed. But of course, it's the innocent bystander walking with her kids that gets shot. Absolutely. They have zero training. But you know who does have training? That's why we should keep an eye on that. It's military-age males, illegal aliens in New York City that are part of this migrant crisis, because we see some of their shots are far different from what we see from other residents of New York City.
Second question for you. It's summertime. It's hot. Everybody that knows me knows what I'm doing. I'm down the beach. My family uses me as a pack mule. I have 18 chairs on my thing. I have coolers. I have everything you could, tents. Everything that you could think of. I'm walking down the block with anything you could think of. I'm hot. I'm discomfort. I don't have any. I have feelings of discomfort and aggression, but none of those make me want to shoot somebody. And I am a legal firearm owner. Do you agree with CNN's heat experts where they say that heat can elevate discomfort and progression, and that could be the catalyst? The reason people are shooting people is because they're not in school. The kids are out of school. More people are outside. So if people are outside and it's hot, then it leads to people being shot. Is this the level of respect that we have for humanity? What do you have to say to these heat experts?
I think CNN nailed it. We need climate change. If everybody lived in a cold zone, we would be completely free of crime. There would be nothing going on. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absurd. Here's what I'll say, okay? And John, you know this clearly because we both did special operations work. What happens initially in the beginning of the summer, because people are outside and they're exposed to each other, unlike when they're hibernating indoors in the winter in Chicago and New York City, where we have several seasons in comparison to other climates, is that when there are beefs that need to be settled amongst gangs or crews, and they're out there with their legal firearms, and they might be exposed to each other, and that's why these incidents will happen. Of course, the police are not there to do intrusive police work to actually stop them. We don't have anti-crime in New York City, clearly not in Chicago, to actually stop them, because when they see someone walking and actually conduct a Terry stop, question, possibly frisk, to actually get that firearm because they're not doing intrusive police work, it's more exposure. But this idea that heat causes you to commit crimes is ridiculous, because I've been in some of the most tropical climates throughout the entire world, in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and some of the most nicest people. I'm surprised that they're not killing each other over there when they're sweating. Thank you, CNN. Thank you for solving climate change. Climate change equals crime. I can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the most ridiculous statement. I was down in the Keys recently, Florida Keys, and they have these deer down there, and they're called key deer, and they come up to you. They'll come up to you. They look like little dogs. Like, they come up to you. They're not afraid of humans at all. And what they say is they have the island effect, right? It's hot as shit down there. It's humid, like 100% humidity. It's in the 90s, even in the winter. I mean, it's hot as hell down there. And they're basically saying that because they're on an island and they have this island effect, they have no fear of humans. They have no fear of anything, really. They have no fear of predators. So it's like, to me, when you're sitting there and you're blaming heat, you're just grabbing straws at this point, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It's totally policy related. And I just want to, even CNN confirms what you're just saying about that, the lack of intrusive police work and the lack of prosecution. They confirm it. They don't realize that they confirm what you said, Betsy said, what we all been saying. Listen to the statement. Listen to this. This is great. The city had canceled time off for police officers to maximize presence and ensure prompt incident response. Activated an emergency service assistance center to provide support to people in the community, and would hold a community rally Friday afternoon to promote bonding, support, and healing, according to Johnson. But the efforts did not end the shootings. And not only did they not end it, and this isn't CNN anymore, not only did it not end it, but the shootings actually increased.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm confused. Because in New York City, they put signs up to tell people to not carry firearms, and that didn't work. And they put signs up in stores to tell people not to trespass and not to burglarize, and that didn't work. So you're telling me that people were told to walk around and hold hands and hug each other, and that didn't work either? I don't get it. The criminals didn't see people shaking hands and holding hands, didn't say, wait a minute, this is a gun-free zone. They're shaking hands, they're holding hands here. No, not today. This is absurd, this ideology. It's ridiculous. It's just like it's the same thing with the unions and when the NYPD saying, oh, we're out here supporting cops. We always tell you we love you. We never forget you. And that's going to help you. Just keep paying us, though. Keep giving us your union dues. This is ridiculous. When are we actually going to come up with solutions? I clearly see it. The only solution is to hold the stakeholders accountable. Who are the stakeholders? You, the voter. Get out there and vote. You know what's a shame right now? There are cops who don't vote. If you're a New York City cop, you have to vote. If you're a Chicago resident and you're a Chicago cop, you have to vote. And you have to vote. Clearly, it affects you. I've heard numerous times, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. It makes a huge difference of who you vote on your local level. Look at this. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Wait, and I got some good. There's some more horrible things, but it just shows exactly what's going on in progressive cities throughout the country. So one of those killed over the weekend was an 8-year-old boy who was shot alongside 2 other boys, ages 5 years and 8 years old, according to the Chicago Police Department online records. Several 15 to 16-year-olds were among those shot over the weekend. CNN has reached out to the mayor's office and the Chicago police for comment and additional information about the long weekend of shootings. You want to hear what they got to say? Overall, the city reported 617 homicides in 2023, though Chicago police data showed a 13% drop in murders that year compared to the previous, when 709 people were killed. So what did they say? Crime is down.
Again, they're celebrating. They say crime is down. Victory. Well, clearly we can see when New York City Mayor Eric Adams got the same ideology. That's why they're good friends with it. Both gaslighting the public this ideology. Things are great. That's okay. We had 100 people shot, but for the entire year, we only had so many people killed. And again, it just shows you that for these woke progressive politics, they don't really care about people. They just care about numbers. They care about things. They're not out this for people. If anything, I would say that the Democrats are the most racist. They're the most biased. They're the most prejudiced. They're the most non-compassionate group of people towards the so-called constituents that they're promoting for their democratic policies. It's just complete paradox.
So before we wrap it up, I want to talk about a couple of things, but we wrap it up. But let's wrap up this thing right here. My contention: 100 people were shot over the weekend, 4th of July weekend in Chicago. Crime was up in every big city across America. Politically created crisis. Crime, the shootings, everything stems back to politics. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying any progressive sitting here and telling you crime's doing this, which it does do, it shouldn't spike straight up. It should be little blips of crime. It shouldn't be to where the quality of life in your city is deteriorating to a point where businesses don't want to be there, residents don't want to be there, families don't want to raise their children or have their kids play in the parks there. That is not a trend. That is a politically created crisis. Then you have the voters who are sick of that. They elect someone like Giuliani who puts in the things that myself and Eric Dim and Betsy Brantner Smith are talking about: prosecution of criminals, having the police actively go out and proactively keep crime down. Go after your violent target offenders, hold them responsible for their actions, and hold elected officials accountable for putting in nonsense legislation. You do that, and guess what? Quality of life in your city improves. Your kids can play in the park. Families want to live in your city. Businesses want to come in your city. So I say politically created crisis. Eric, am I a right-wing conspiracy theorist for saying that?
Yes, you sure are. You absolutely are. You're absolutely a right-wing conspiracy theorists that actually believe that crime would go down by actually having legislation in place would actually put criminals in jail. I think that's absolutely insane of you, John, to actually want to put criminals in jail. They belong on the streets. They should walk around and be free. It's their right to express themselves. They should commit crimes they want. No, this is absolutely ridiculous for anybody to have this ideology. Think about it, right? Everything that John just mentioned, right? I want to reflect on it, are the ingredients. Right? New York City Mayor Eric Adams likes to say, the prerequisite. What are the prerequisites to prosperity for public safety, right? And what John just said, what are the ingredients to the key to public safety? So in order to make a cake, if you're home, if you're going to make a cake, or if you're going to cook something, you need specific ingredients to make that thing, to make that food or make dinner. The same thing when it comes to crime. If you want public safety, you need the proper ingredients. You need a police force that's supported. You need a masculine police department. You need district attorneys that actually do their job and support the police department and actually seek to prosecute criminals. You need judges that actually keep these criminals in jail. You need legislation that is anti-bail reform. You need to remove this whole ideology of raise the age because, look, we have 15 and 16-year-olds that are far more likely to commit gang crime than these 17 and 18-year-olds. These leaders, and I used to speak to them during debriefings, the leaders of these gangs, they utilize the kids to get dirty work done because they know that there's no prosecution, there's no consequences, and they're using these kids. And you think that you're helping these kids by not prosecuting. You would actually help them if you had stronger laws because then the gangs could not use these kids and demonize them and use them to commit their crimes. So again, goes back to who you vote for. New York City residents, Chicago residents, Democratic residents throughout this entire country, you are a stakeholder in public safety for your community. Think today. Let's get it right.
Two things before we wrap up. I just want to go over real quick. FDNY is giving extra credit to New York City residents. Good thing, a bad thing? What do you think about that?
I just commented on that. Of course, listen, as a veteran, I do believe that veterans should get points and you should be compensated for your service, right? Because only 6% of the entire country has ever served or will serve or has served in the military. Now, I do believe that if you are a New York City resident, I do believe that you should get points for that. We should target New York City residents. They live there. They understand the nomenclature. They lived in the metropolis. But I do think that there has to be, of course, they would have to up the ante. So if we're going to give 10 points to a New York City resident who's not a veteran, then of course someone else who's a veteran, we should just up the ante, give them an extra 5 points or maybe an extra 2 points. There should be some adjustment. But I have no problem. I don't see any issue with New York City residents getting additional credits for being a resident. That keeps residents in New York City, keeps them employed, has them seeking these blue-collar jobs and supporting the city. Who better to support the city than those people that are proud to live there and to be residents of New York City themselves?
Couldn't agree with you more. New York City residents should get preferential treatment, as should the members of our military. I don't believe New York City residents should get more points than people who have served in the military. I didn't read too deep into that article when I retweeted it, so I didn't see that you're actually going to get more points for being a New York City resident than serving in the military. And then there should be something else. If you served in the military and you are a New York City resident, you should get even more points, right? Like there should be. So I think common sense, when I read a little deeper into the article, though, it said they're doing that to boost the numbers of black and brown within the FDNY. Don't support that message at all. Let it be organic. Complete nonsense to even say that and do that. New York City's diverse group of individuals. I don't even know who's the evil white man in New York City. I haven't found him yet. If you guys do, let us know. Because I'm looking for him. I've been looking for him for 43 years. I haven't found him yet.
You look at the mirror. You are it. You're the evil white guy. Same here. Blonde hair, blue-eyed devil. Also, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And I think before we wrap up, I just want to say, listen, to the young black men out there, black and brown men and women, if you want these jobs, if you want blue-collar jobs, if you want to be part of the FDNY or New York City Police Department support, the service of the community. I think you should find it insulting that they're trying to find ways to alleviate and deviate and manipulate the system so that you can get this job. You should be insulted and say, wait a minute, I have the intelligence, I have the physicality, I have the mentality to get these jobs without these points administered or out manipulation of the system. I think it's a complete insult to the credibility, because there's many black men and women that I've served with that were far better than I am and far superior. So this is absolutely insulting. I think it's ridiculous. Again, goes back to what I said before. If anyone is actually showing prejudice and bias to their constituents, it's the Democrats themselves. The same policies that they so-called support the minority community are actually insulting the minority community.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why when that judge threw out that FDNY test, where he said that based upon sheer number of black and brown passing alone or failure to pass alone, that the test is racist. So he threw it out. I was working with a black guy at the time, 6'7", right? And he was like, I was like, dude, that's completely racist. That's completely ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. And the judge said, and this holds true to today, for every 4 white firefighters hired, you need to hire 4 Hispanic, 4 black. And I'm like, that's completely ridiculous. It's lowering standards. It's actually racist. And the black guy said to me, no, it's not. And I said, okay. I said, I'm smarter than you. I'm faster than you. I'm stronger than you. I'm bigger than you. I'm better than you. And he's like, got completely insulted. And he's like, no, you're not. I was like, well, that's what that test just said, because you need help and I don't. I'm better than you. And then when he looked at it like that, he was like, you know what? I could see what you're saying now. I was like, yeah. I was like, because it's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely racist. It's nice to get lauded and get things thrown at you, but when you really look at it when you look behind it, like what are the motivators and the actions behind why you're doing that? And it's, again, if it's not organic, it's not good. Real quick, it just popped in my head, dude. LA Lakers. They draft Bronny James, right? They draft him in the 2nd round. I think he's the number 55 pick, if I'm not mistaken. LeBron James' son, he averaged 4 points a game. Plenty of players in college were better suited for the NBA, bigger bodies, averaged more points, did much better in college, including players on Bronny's whole team. So to me, it just keeps popping in my head. The LA Lakers are like the NYPD. The LA Lakers are like the NYPD. Drafting Bronny James at 55 is like making Kaz Daughtry a deputy commissioner. That's what I like. I'm like, wow, you're going to take this kid, you're going to take your pick and then put him up on a pedestal. And America loves dumb people. So like the media loves Kaz Daughtry. Bronny James's jersey selling like crazy. I think, Kaz, you should sell your deputy commissioner operations hat. I think you'll even come. I think you'll be up there with Bronny James jersey sales.
You know what's funny? We are the 2 evil white men. You know why? Because we actually speak the truth. We actually support. You know what's funny? It's funny that some people sometimes attack this podcast and attack some of our tweets and say that we're racist. And I say it's actually completely opposite. We're actually the most supportive of minority communities, because we're telling you the minorities that we worked with and the minorities that we've dealt with, some of them are far superior than we are. And we believe that if you hire organically, you're going to get an organic and diverse police department without this actual push. So we support minorities. So far different and complete opposition for some of the claims that we've got from haters. I also would like to say that, it's interesting, right? We say that, right? You're better. I'm better than you. Just as those things that you said, you're highlighting the truth. But you know who also says that? Not because they mean it. They say it because it's self-serving. John Shell, I'm sure he tells Kaz Daughtry and Jeffrey Madry quite often, you guys are better than me. You guys are great, right? Keep holding their water. Keep being their little cuck boy. Great job. Good job, John Shell. You are the pale token white face along with Michael Kemper, and you guys have no shame. As long as you get those helicopter rides, keep enjoying. I'm sure it's your great claim to fame. I'm sure we'll read your book one day, how you did ride-alongs in the helicopter. Great stage operation. You really set a great example for your people. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for spending taxpayer money. John Shell, thank you so much. You are really impressive.
The NYPD should be a cautionary tale in police departments on who not to appoint in your administration. Last thing, unfortunately, we got reports of an NYPD officer who committed suicide. I'll refrain from mentioning his name. Eric, what's your thoughts on suicide in law enforcement, suicides in the NYPD? Any advice you could give to anybody?
Well, I'm actually glad you mentioned that, right? That was going to be my last point before we wrap this up. It's so sad of the mental health condition that's going on with the New York City Police Department, but it goes back to the quote I've constantly spoke to numerous reporters, and they will not put it out there. And I put it out there constantly on tweets, and we spoke about the podcast. It's my firm belief it's the internal pressures of the NYPD that are far more a contributing factor to the suicide epidemic of police work, especially in the NYPD, in comparison to other factors that are going on with low morale and things like that, and also the outside factors of what they're dealing with on the street and things that they're dealing with at home. I think ultimately it's the internal pressures of the NYPD are the contributing factor to mental health. Can we honestly start helping the police officers right now? Actually help them and not just say it. Listen, I took a seminar. I went to a seminar with PAPA, which is an organization that helps police officers. If you're out there working with a fellow police officer and you find that there's something different, you actually have to ask those hard questions. You actually have to ask them, do you want to kill yourself? You can't dance around these things. Do you want to kill yourself? You can't even just say, do you want to hurt yourself? You have to say those hard words. Do you want to kill yourself? And actually take them out for a cup of coffee. Actually show them that you care. Because unfortunately, the New York City Police Department, if you're involved in a pickle or if you're having depression or some sort of anxiety or you're going through something that is trivial, in the police department, you will suffer as a leper. Other police officers will treat you like you have leprosy. And that's what we have to stop doing. That is one of the contributing factors to the internal pressures of the NYPD, to the suicide epidemic. Support your police officers. Support that this is a tragedy. This is sad because the internal pressures are killing our men and women.
I couldn't agree with you more. If I had to put it on a scale of percentage-wise, I would put the percentage of internal pressure as it relates to suicide, I'd put it in the high 90 percentile margin of why officers kill themselves. Couple that with, with levels of PTSD, with some slight PTSD in there, as well as pressures of home life, relationships, etc. But I think all of that really stems from the internal pressures of the NYPD and what happens, your lack of time off. You even see it in this article that we just read where, oh, God, you can't have off in the summer. You guys can't take off in the summer. Oh, yeah, we're going to flip over your weekend. You're never going to be able to plan anything your entire summer. I think suicide it's not spoken about enough. And for you guys that are going through anxiety, you're going through depression, highly recommend taking creatine. I've been taking it. I forget the brand I've been taking. I'll post it somewhere. Thorn on Amazon. I have I've dealt with depression and anxiety myself. Creatine, great, but I couple that with working out, with eating good, and with sleep. Sleep's very hard, and eating good is very hard when you're a cop, right? It really is, because your schedule is always thrown off. You're never in good neighborhoods. You're never around good quality food. But you have to sort of be selfish when you're a cop. You have to start to say, okay, I have to put myself first, or else I can't help anybody on the street, and I can't help anybody in my family if I'm not operating at 100%. So I think those things helped me. The other thing I just want to put in there, Eric's saying don't be scared for help. I've unfortunately, I know people that committed suicide, and I've actually hung out with them the night prior to it, and there were literally zero signs that the person was going to commit suicide. It was actually the exact opposite. And to me, so I always flash back, and I'm there was nothing there that I could have known. You know what I mean? Because he shielded it very well. But to me, I'm sitting here and I'm letting all you guys know, don't be embarrassed about anything, because there's people in the NYPD currently. And for those of you that know who you are, see you when I see you, but, and I'll tell it to your face, but there's people in the NYPD currently, they get hit with a detail. Guess what? They all of a sudden get suicidal, depressive thoughts, and they go out. Complete utter cowards. They were complete utter cowards their whole career. Shocked they haven't been promoted to deputy commissioner or first grade detectives. But there's people that do that actually use it, and they have absolutely zero depression and zero reason for PTSD. The only thing they should have is shame about how they do it for their career. So if you're actually going through something, your life, your health is more important than what these morons that you work with think about you. When you retire, it's only you and your family. When you go home from work, it's just you and your family. Forget what the people in the NYPD think about you, what your assignment is. how your career went, whatever it is. These people are losers. They matter none in your life. And put yourself and your family first.
I want to say this. All right. I've been speaking to numerous cops anonymously. All right. Of course, we always protect your identity. And eventually, I think we're going to podcast on this. So please, if you fall into this category, reach out to us, www.thefinestunfiltered.com. If you have our numbers, call us. We'll keep it anonymous. Of course, I know the police department's pretty much put a gag order out for you not to speak to us. So, of course, we'll always keep your identity and secrecy. But I have spoke to numerous cops. I spoke to a couple of cops yesterday, John, and I can tell the mental health that they're experiencing right now, the depression, anxiety issues, especially the sleep deprivation that some of these cops I spoke to are experiencing. And they told me some communities that they're working in, they're so shorthanded that they're working pretty much 24/7 around the clock, and they haven't stopped. And they're so exhausted that some of them are terrified that they're going to get into a freakish car accident just going to and from work. That's how overworked the police department is right now. So I'd love to actually drill down eventually and try to get information from different police officers. What's going on out there? What do these rosters actually look like? Get a roster in your precinct. See how many people are actually in your command in comparison to before Mayor Eric Adams was in office. Because I do believe that Mayor Eric Adams and his failed administration is gaslighting the public and telling the manpower what's going on, because clearly the manpower can't match up to the experiences that I'm hearing from these police officers. I hear from sergeants also that the sergeants are working out there pretty much like cops. The lieutenants are cops themselves right now, that they're running around chasing their own tails. And you have to stop doing that. You actually have to sit down and say, well, I can't, there's only so much you could do. I mean, I'm hearing horror stories, John, that some of the cops are out there that they're actually leaving DOAs to run to different jobs and to go back. I mean, that's how bad it's getting right now, that they're putting themselves in positions that they could get themselves in trouble and pickles because they're trying to do the right job. And cops do it all the time. They spite their nose to bite their face. They're putting themselves in positions where they could actually get themselves in trouble because they want to do the right thing. It's so shorthanded right now, John. Have you heard? I'm sure you probably heard the same thing. Have you heard anything recently?
I got a call. I'm not going to say the command, but I got a call saying that on the midnight in Manhattan, in an A house in Manhattan, where there are a ton of migrant shelters, where crime's through the roof, there was one car on the midnight and a sergeant without a driver. One car out there. That's public safety in New York City. That's how much public safety is the prerequisite to prosperity, as New York City mayor says. So these guys on patrol, the average rank and file of the NYPD, are out there killing themselves. If you're in a unit, you're going out there and you're out on the streets every day. You're really not taking care of your core responsibilities. And to me, at that point, I don't even want to be in a detail or a unit. Put me on patrol, because I'd rather worry about the 911 calls than have all this other stuff that I'm going to get written up for, possibly fired or whatever else, and putting things on the back end. But you see that happening also on patrol, right? Like you just said, if someone's leaving, what Eric is saying is a DOA. What the NYPD is responsible for that is to make sure that the medical examiner comes, that scene, because it's technically a crime scene until it's deemed by a medical professional that it's suspicious or not suspicious, until the squad comes there. So you're basically handling a crime scene at that point. You're also responsible for all the property that's there. Should there be money, jewelry, anything of that nature, the NYPD is responsible for that. So if you're leaving that, who knows? Family member shows up, a neighbor shows up, the super shows up, takes a key, robs them blind of stuff they have in there. You don't even know. You were on the crime scene. Guess who's ultimately going to be held responsible? You are. So cops are putting themselves civilly and criminally liable to go out there and provide public safety, while their unions and their appointed officials are just driving around, flying in helicopters and getting fat.
They're getting fat and happy. It must be great with, just doing ride-alongs and getting filmed. And it must be great to be the deputy commissioner of operations, because you could always play two sides of the coin. Well, I couldn't do this because I'm a civilian. I'm in a civilian position, or I could do this because I was also a detective yesterday, and I'm really still a detective who wears the moniker of deputy commissioner of operations. Who knows what he is? I don't know. He gets to play both sides. What is your pension anyway, Kaz Daughtry? I'm just curious. How does it actually work for you? And your public record, it's not public. What's going on with it? I don't know. But again, goes back to everything that we're saying. Listen, for everybody that's watching it, thank you so much for supporting us. New York's Finest Unfiltered Podcast. John, thank you, brother. Let's do it.
All right, that's it. We'll be back at you, peoples.
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.